The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of Choice 105.3 or its advertisers.
Your views, your opinion, your voice. Tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM on Saturdays at 1 p.m. for the talk show that tackles the major issues on target. Join former members of the Nevis Island Administration and St. Kitts Nevis Federal Government as they discuss and debate today's issues with the listening audience. Also expect special guests, panelists, and friends. Participate by calling phone lines 869-469-5300 or overseas phone line 203-983-8903. Listen live on www.sknclt.com. Be sure to tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM each and every Saturday at 1 p.m. It's On Target with the Honorable Dwight Cozier, the Honorable E. Roberto Hector, and the Honorable Patrice Nisbet. Where the press is free and every man is able to read, all is safe. That is the motto of the national newspaper of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the SKN Leeward Times. Be sure to purchase our latest issue at our many distributors, including TDC City Drugstore, Slacks Liquor, Chapter 1 Bookstore, Dongfang Supermarket, Superfood Supermarket, Island Tires and Hardware, Ram Supermarket, Hosford's Value Mart, Cost Me Less, Best Buy Gingerland, X-Petrol, E&F Enterprise, Mansa's Last Stop, and A.V. Jones & Sons. Stay up to date with what's going on in the Federation, the wider Caribbean, and the whole world. Buy yourself a copy of the SKN Leeward Times newspaper. For more information, be sure to call 1-869-469-1049 or log on to our website www.sknclt.com. Get in touch with your favorite presenter or go live on Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM by calling local line 1-869-469-5300. Calling from overseas? No problem. Call 1-203-983-8903. It's your SKN Choice Times and we want to hear from you.
Power rules the world today. Power corrupts, they say. And absolute power corrupts you. Absolutely. It can change a man who has a heart of gold.
Good afternoon. We as usual, apologize for the late start. It's a habit now, so I guess we should be moving the start date to 1:15 out of habit. But we have in the studio this afternoon only two soldiers are here today, myself and Honorable Patrice Nisbet. The Honorable E. Roberto Hector is off on duty, and of course we missed last week the Honorable Mr. Dwight Cozier, who is all the way across the other end of the world on business, and so he should be back here in the week, and he'll be joining us here on the studios for next week's broadcast. So I wish you a good afternoon to all those who are our regular visitors or regular listeners, I should say, whether here at home or abroad. All individuals in the diaspora who regularly tune in, whether in England or Canada, the US, or throughout the islands, who have shared their sentiment with us over the few months and over the last years. And so, we like to thank them for their continued patronage by listening and sharing their ideas and thoughts, because we do get a lot of comments via WhatsApp, personal WhatsApps, and so even though persons don't call in, we do get feedback from that. And that sometimes the WhatsApp questions prompt us to go into a different direction in our commentary. And so we do welcome all those persons who rather feel more comfortable, who may want to WhatsApp any one of us and make your comments that way. We will share with you. We will share your comments as we move through the broadcast. I also like to say good afternoon to my sound engineer here, the venerable DJ. You got DJ X-ray. You know, that means, you know, X-rays can penetrate your body. So he can see right through your body and know what your soul is moving. You know, your feet might not be moving, but he can tell whether you're enjoying the music. And most likely you will be enjoying the music because he's quite an exceptional DJ. And so we move right into the heart of the matter. And of course, we normally start with the headlines of the nation's newspapers. And on the SKNCLT Times, we have big and broad in the first half of the page, National Heroes Ceremony on September 16th will be a special occasion. And I think in the Observer, there's also a headline similar to that, or a sub-headline. And there was questioning whether the statues that are supposed to be enshrined at the National Heroes Mall will be available in time for the ceremony or not. And then following on that, you have business owner dies of gunshot wounds. We spoke of the unfortunate death of Benjamin Joseph last week. And we know he suffered several gunshots and succumbed to his injuries at the Alexandria Hospital a day or so later. And so we continue to share our condolences with the family and hope for a quick solution to this crime, because it seems that our business people are now facing the brunt of this murder spree. We have lost quite a bit of persons from this. And as I indicated before, when the war raged between young people shooting one another, we were lulled into the belief by our political leadership that let them kill one another, they will soon stop. But you're now seeing that the violence has now spread into communities that have nothing to do with it, and they are purely prey or victims of this senseless murder that we are facing. I think Mr. Joseph's murder was the 7th in Nevis. I think the 15th or 16th in the Federation. I'm losing track now because we have become so insensitive to these murders. We tend to just brush them over nowadays because it happens so frequently. We no longer pay the kind of respect we need to do for these senseless murders. And following that, we have the Development Bank promotes tourism in Nevis through Fresh Start program. I am advised by the Honorable Patrice Nisbet that the Fresh Start program is a new program that is under the Team Unity banner. It is a replacement for the Labour seed program. So what they have done basically, they are trying to reinvent the wheel by not reinventing the wheel, because it is the same program but just a different name. And so, we all know the reasons behind that. Everybody wants to put their stamp on things. So those are the three major items on the SKNCLT Times. And on the Observer, we have several headlines. I'll start with the most recent. Education entities return to renovated Marion Heights location. You know that we have been advocating that, having spent the quantum of funds, and we still haven't gotten to the bottom of the barrel as how much was spent to renovate Marion Heights. And we know they were paying something like $13,000 or $14,000 a month to rent a premises down at Pinny's. So at least now, common sense has prevailed, and they have now removed themselves from Pinny's, and they're now back at Marion Heights. So there's a story on that. And then you have the police summer youth camp makes a favorable impression. And of course, last week you spoke briefly about that. And then you have two stories. Minister of Foreign Affairs hold discussions in Taiwan. And we will be examining that part of the story a little more in details. And then following that, another story of the same ilk. It says Foreign Minister seeks vocational training opportunities for Kittitians and Nivisians in Taiwan. And they're talking about, of course, Mark Brantley, who is off in Taiwan. He and Minister Alexis Jeffers and a few other person. I think the PS of Health, Ms. Liebert, and the PS of Education are also there in Taiwan. And then you have another story about Minister Richards urges parents to be more involved in children's education. Wow, what a revelation. I'm so moved by that. Other smaller stories of that of significance. I think those are the most important of the stories, and so we'll use those as a jumping off point. There's a story about Nevlec. There's a story about Nevlec. They're going to be delaying the commissioning of the generator set, the new generator Wärtsilä, the new Wärtsilä generator. They're going to be delaying the commissioning until I think the 17th of September. And we'll be examining the state of power as usual here on St. Kitts and Nevis. So those are the headlines, and I will be speaking to a few of those. And we'll be talking about the commissioning of the new generator set. And of course, there was a sort of a bungle with the departure of the 41 persons who were to travel to Leeds for the cultural parade. There are some comments to be made on that, some observations, and also I would like to do quite a bit on the issue of the mission to Taiwan and the role of the Minister of Foreign Affairs in that. So, and if time permits, a little bit on education. So those are my points which I will bring to the fore. I will ask the Honorable Patrice Nisbet to greet us and to tell us what is on his mind.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Daly. And let me extend a very pleasant good afternoon to our listeners, those who tune in religiously every Saturday at 1 o'clock to hear the voice of reason and to hear us shine the bright light of scrutiny, as Mr. Cozier would say, on the issues that are affecting the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and sometimes more specifically to the island of Nevis. Of course, Dr. Daly, we have had a very interesting week that has passed, and there are a number of matters that one would want to bring and discuss with the general public this afternoon. Of course, I must apologize for my absence last week. I had some prior engagements which I couldn't get myself out of in order to be here on the radio, but I am back. I think this week we saw circulating the story about our Prime Minister being caught in a lie. Big lie. Question of whether certain monies were in fact paid by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis to one gentleman called Lanny Davis. And we want to know what is the truth. I think the Honorable Marcella Liebert, in her presentation on the radio this week, went at great lengths. Using her skills of research, she was able to demonstrate to the general public in St. Kitts and Nevis that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, the office of the Prime Minister, made payments to Lanny Davis. And Lanny Davis would have revealed this in certain declarations that he made to his government, the U.S. government. And he knows the consequences of making false declarations to the U.S. government. And he is in the business of lobbying. And in the business of lobbying, there are certain registrations that you have to do once you're a lobbyist. And there are certain declarations that you have to make to the government. And so in his declaration, he has indicated to the world, to the U.S. government, to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis would have paid him some sums of money. Yet still, we were told by our Prime Minister in the Parliament, in the Parliament of all places, that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis never paid any monies to Lanny Davis. And so you have on one hand, the Prime Minister is saying this. On the other hand, you have Lanny Davis himself making a declaration to the US government who paid him. And as an individual, you must ask yourself, if I got money from Daily, I must know. If I got money from X-Ray, I must know. I must know as an individual who would have paid me certain sums of money. Of course, another matter that one would want to address, and leading on to that, is the question of the PAC. I wanted, if I came last week, to say a few things about the Public Accounts Committee and how this government, using the parliament, using the numbers that they have, in terms of a majority, they have reduced the Public Accounts Committee to a toothless, meaningless institution here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so this afternoon, one would want to compare the powers that the PAC had before and what are the new powers that this Public Accounts Committee has, against the backdrop of how some people used to, when they were in opposition, they used to go around saying that they wanted to bring integrity, they wanted to bring decency, transparency, and accountability to government. And one want to ask this afternoon whether this PAC that they have now legislated in this form will in fact achieve those desired results. Of course, Dr. Daly, the issue of the economy is very much on my mind. When you drive around Nevis now, you see the business places, the restaurants. Empty. The sun is hot and you don't see no patrons. And you're wondering, what is the new policy of this government to drive this economy forward? Because we seriously need some sort of business or economic activity here on the island of Nevis. I mean, we have tried bingos and we have realized where that has led us. I mean, we are now into earth moving equipment. But we know how that is. That is just in a select few, among a select few. And sometimes you realize in order to generate some work for the truckers, they create the work. It's not like a situation where development is coming. But they move dirt from one end of the airport to the other end just to generate work for heavy equipment. Of course, the issue of crime is very much on everybody's mind. And the argument that we make in the Nevis Reformation Party is very simple. They told you to put them in the government because they will be able to solve the crime. And they like to use a lot of statistics to justify their argument in relation to crime back then. Today, under CCM since 2013, we have had over maybe 33 murders on the CCM. And so, the question I ask this afternoon, what effective strategy that they have put in place to deal with the issue of crime? And we see in Nevis the changing face of crime. We have our young women under attack. We have now, and continuing, the business people. They are under attack. The economy is not performing. And now you realize the business persons are being targeted by the criminals. Of course, this week we had the cricket. And I want to extend my congratulations to the Patriots. I think based upon the point standing, they are going to qualify for the final round of matches. The people went out, they enjoyed themselves, and it again demonstrates the vision of the former government. The government went against the backdrop of severe criticism from the opposition about why are you investing in Warner Park? Why are you putting lights in Warner Park? People were saying that that was a waste of money. Invest the money elsewhere. People were saying that the SIDF was being used as a slush fund. And today you see them in Warner Park enjoying themselves. And so as a result of the vision of the former government, we can host CPL matches and showcase St. Kitts and Nevis to the entire world. That's a fact, and that is as a result of the work of the former government. You know, some people used to say St. Kitts people are not cricketers. Why are you bringing cricket to St. Kitts? That should be done in Nevis. That's what they were saying. They are part of our government, and when they got the first opportunity to invest in sporting facilities, what did they invest in? They invest in an athletics track. And so maybe this afternoon we could look at that. I would want also to congratulate all those students who would have done well in their CSEC examinations and CAPE examinations. I understand that the results are out. And I would want to offer my congratulations to all who would have done well. And also we know sometimes we have some who have not done so well. And so those, we would want to encourage them to continue. And of course the debate rages on. And Dr. Daly, who is an educator, maybe he can shed some light on this matter about the number of subjects being done by individual students. We have heard someone in Guyana, I think, sat 25 subjects, and he passed all 25. And so there is great debate now about whether persons should be allowed to do that amount of subjects. And so the electricity here continues to go off, and we would want maybe to speak a little bit about that quickly this afternoon. And those are my issues for today.
Thank you, Honorable Patrice Nisbet. We'll take a short break and be right back.
Get in touch with your favorite presenter or go live on Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM by calling local line 1-869-469-5300. Calling from overseas? No problem. Call 1-203-983-8903. It's your SKN Choice Times, and we want to hear from you.
While someone come knocking at your door, they want to know whether you're rich or you're poor. They're gonna ask about your finances, about your income, your budget, your spendings. Country poverty assessment is the name. To get Get rid of poverty is the real aim. Please cooperate, give the information. Please cooperate, you are a chosen one. Please cooperate, it's confidential. Let's get poverty out of we island.
Where the press is free and every man is able to read, all is safe. That is the motto of the national newspaper of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the SKN Leeward Times. Be sure to purchase our latest issue at our many distributors, including TDC City Drugstore, Slacks Liquor, Chapter 1 Bookstore, Dong Fang Supermarket, Superfood Supermarket, Island Tires and Hardware, Ram Supermarket, Hosford's Value Mart, Cost Me Less, Best Buy Gingerland, X-Petrol, E&F Enterprise, Mansa's Last Stop, and A.V. Jones and Sons. Stay up to date with what's going on in the Federation, the wider Caribbean, and the whole world. Buy yourself a copy of the SKN Leeward Times newspaper. For more information, be sure to call 1-869-469-1049 or log on to our website www.sknclt.com.
Power rules the world today.
Welcome back to Choice FM 105.3 on your radio dial. You can link us on Facebook. You can link us on SKN Choice Times. And of course, you can call us. What's the number again, DJ? 469. He used to give me a cue card here, but because, 469 5300. And of course, your calls are welcome to be a part of the program. A little bit of housekeeping matters. First, I would like to thank all those persons who patronized the NRP breakfast this morning at Boca Park. We had a delicious and sumptuous breakfast prepared by the St. Paul's constituency group. And I personally like to think about Michelle Williams, our key organizer for the event, and she went above and beyond herself in preparing for today's breakfast by having such a wonderful display. Normally we have some tables, yada yada, but she really spruced up the place. And in spite of this early morning showers, I think we did fairly well. So I thank all those persons who came out and all those persons who I delivered for. Please buy a car so you don't have to have me running around making deliveries. I don't mind. It's welcome benefit for the party. So thank you very much for patronizing this morning. On Monday, as a reminder that we're having a press conference. It was initially scheduled for Thursday at the Credit Union at 10 a.m. Thursday gone. Is now rescheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. at the Credit Union. So all the persons interested can either come physically or they can listen on Freedom or they can follow it live on the NRP Facebook page. And the topic, of course, has to do with the regulations that we envision to manage the cannabis cultivation and use on Nevis, and hopefully in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And just a reminder that if you are interested in getting any government business done on Nevis this week, and perhaps early into next week, I remind you that the Premier and Deputy Premier and Deputy Premier are all off island. And so I would advise you to reschedule whatever plans you have, because only the two junior ministers, Liebert and Williams, are available. The general public has not been notified that we are without a leadership of that magnitude, all senior persons being off island at the same time. The Deputy Governor General, of course, is deceased and on the ground, so he cannot help in this matter. So perhaps we are on autopilot, or perhaps there's directions from the Prime Minister in St. Kitts, or Deputy Premier of St. Kitts to deal with matters on Nevis. Maybe that's the instructions. But we have right now, absent from the island of Nevis, all three elected members of the NIA, and I am not certain who is in charge, whether it's Junior Minister Liebert or Junior Minister Williams. I am not certain. Nobody has told us who is in charge when the cooks, the chief cooks, are away. The first item I would like to talk about, of course, in agreement with Patrice, is the continuing scourge of power outages that we are facing here on Nevis. And I've learned in the paper this afternoon actually, that the commissioning of the new generator set, the Wattzilla 3.8 megawatt generator, has now been delayed until the 17th of September. It was supposed to be commissioned on the 28th of August, but we are now being told without any credible reasoning why the date has been pushed back until the 17th. Somehow we are being told that it is to coincide with the 17th anniversary of the formation of NEVLEC. My question, of course, is then, is it the commissioning that is being delayed, or is it the fact that the machine is still offline? Because you can certainly have an official commissioning on the 17th of September while the machine goes through its paces until, while the machine comes online in anticipation of being officially commissioned on the 17th. And reading from the Observer, it seems as if the information that is captured in the Observer is saying that communication between the Observer and the office of NEVLEC indicated that the CEO, Mr. Swanston, is unavailable until the 28th, and the second in command, Miss Merchant, all she indicated was that the commissioning has been pushed back until the 17th. So I am still, and persons in the are still wondering if indeed the machine is online or is it offline until the 17th. There's a bit of discrepancy or a void of information there. And what I'm hearing from the ground, though, is that they're having a lot of problems getting the new machine to cooperate. A lot of people are believing, Mr. Nisbet, that the generator set itself comes exclusively from Wattzilla. That's not the case. Wattzilla makes the engine, but the generator set comes from a different company. So you have to now marry both units. And as occurring in Tortola, there seems to be some difficulty down there as well with the marriage between those two different components. And they're having a set of problems there where every few weeks the machine aborts without notice. And so we're wondering whether they're having the same issues here on Nevis, why we haven't been able to solve the issues with power. Because power keeps going off. Persons in St. James, Mr. Nisbet, are still on the forefront of that power outage. Persons in Prospect, Long Point, they're feeling the brunt of it. And of course, when the power goes, water goes, and when water goes, you can't take a shower. And of course, when the power goes, the internet goes and the cable goes. So all four are in sync, and we are wondering what is going on. We were told that this matter will be quickly solved, but the minister with responsibility is in Taiwan. God knows for what, because I can't imagine what he could be asking the Taiwanese for or to do. He himself doesn't know what he's about, so I don't know how he can ask anybody to help him fight. I guess he can ask him how to figure out how stupid he is. I don't know what the situation with him is. But Mr. Nisbet, I would like you to comment briefly on the issue with NEVLEC and how the power situation is in St. James.
Dr. Daly, I have already said on many times that if a government cannot supply you with an uninterrupted supply of power in 2017, that government must go home. Dr. Daly, we have the skills here. We know a good gentleman by the name of Cartwright Farrell. he was here providing the requisite leadership for our power company. But because the government felt in some way that maybe Mr. Farrell is not a supporter of them, they did all sort of shenanigans to have Mr. Farrell's position become quite uncomfortable leading the NEVLEC. And you know, they were having a lot of challenges in St. Kitts. And the people in St. Kitts basically was saying, listen, if you all don't want Farrell in Nevis, we will take him. And Farrell went to Bastia, and it turned the electricity system in Bastia around, where the people of St. Kitts, who used to be accustomed to power outages, now can't even remember the last time there was a power outage. And that was as a result of the work of Mr. Farrell. And so if they are having challenges, and they are having challenges with the supply of electricity, we can source the talent right here in Nevis to bring the turn around that is required in the NEVLEC situation. Because Dr. Daly, the power goes off in St. James all the time. I had a funeral on Thursday, and while I was there preparing myself, I didn't even went to iron my clothes yet, and the power went.
At least you didn't get half your clothes ironed this time.
I had to wait until sometime after, when the power was restored, for me to go and get my clothes ironed. And I have my little daughter, and each time the power goes, she keeps saying to me, Daddy, I'm hot. That's what she keeps saying, I am hot. Because it is hot.
These days have been extremely hot.
Extremely hot.
Extremely hot.
And to add, to compound the situation, there is no power. So you can't put on your fan. You can't do the things that are required in order to cool you down. And so that is the situation we in St. James, we have suffered. As a matter of fact, I heard somebody's doing a count now, and they're telling me that the power has gone off some 93 times.
93 times.
In the last year or so, we have had 93 power outages.
No, the month.
It's for the month?
For the month. You're talking about the year, it's for the month.
Man, I was giving them more credit.
No.
For the month?
On the month of August, for the month of August, the power, we are keeping a running total of how many times the power goes out. And in some places like Cherry Gardens and Prospect, it goes off multiple times per day. And you can't predict when exactly it's going to go and when it's going to come back. So what the score, the running tally you get is for the month of August. My gosh.
93 times? In 1 month?
In 1 month.
And people still say they want to be in charge of NEVLEC?
Yes.
And we still have a minister of communications, public utilities?
Yep.
But look what, the power has not stabilized here in Nevis. And look what the minister does. He gets up and go on a jaunt to Taiwan. Maybe he has never been to Taiwan.
Well.
Maybe he gone there to look at engines. Because
he
he went to Norway. No, which one? Finland?
Finland.
Went to Finland to observe a factory testing of the Wärtsilä. And we knew he was not technically trained in order to shed any expertise when that testing was being done. And so he has said, to hell with the people of Nevis. You deal with the power situation. I am going off on a trip to Taiwan. And we here in Nevis sweating and still experiencing power outages. And the people in St. James in particular, the people who would have voted for him, we have suffered the most when it comes to the power outages. Because it looks like the first place they turn off power is in St. James. Are you sure on Thursday the power went off maybe about 3-4 times? in St. James, or on that cotton ground feeder, I think that's what it is called, circuit on that side. Power went off several times, and businesses are impacted by the loss of power, because we know some businesses can't function unless there's water and there is electricity. For example, in Fountain, Trevor Cabo Cornelius, he's a mechanic. And in order for him to do his work, he needs power. And so if the power is out, he's also out. Can't make no money. The economy is already slow. And yet still, you can't generate enough electricity so that individuals, businesses in St. James can in fact stay open and make whatever little money is there to be made, or do whatever work, or offer whatever service that they would be offering to the general public for a price. And so, Dr. Daly, that is the challenge that is being faced in St. James. It is not only the house holders being affected, but the businesses in St. James. And I know, Dr. Daly, when the power goes, what happened to the ice cream?
We have to sell milkshakes.
Now what happens?
You can't scoop ice cream when it's melted. So you have to make milkshakes.
That'll make a milkshake.
At least. But there's something else, Mr. Nisbet, that I found amusing. There was a comment made by the minister responsible for communication and works, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, indicating that the use of the containerized generator, the 2.5 megawatt containerized generator, was not meant to be running 24/7, 365. And it was only meant to be used as a stopgap when in the event you're doing maintenance on the main power plant. And my question is then, why would you want to spend that class of money on a temporary supply of power when you're already in a deficit situation? Why not bring in a permanent supply? Because we're already in a deficit. Why are you going to have a generator set that you can only use a few hours a day to make ends meet? And you're going to pay in that class of money for it. I don't understand the logic of that. I really don't understand the logic of that. Get a proper engine. You already reported to the people that your infrastructure is aged. Your superstructure is aged. So why would you want to invest in a stopgap approach rather than a full-blown approach to rectify the problem of power generation? I don't understand that one.
The question I want to ask in relation to that is this. Because I spent some time in the government, and I have some understanding as to how government functions. And Dr. Daly, you were PS and a president of a college. And when decisions are to be made in these areas, I thought that you got advice.
Of course.
Advice from the technical people.
You have to.
That is where I understand it. If that amount of money is going to be expended on acquiring some hardware, one would think that before that investment is made, that some sort of advice will come from somebody who is trained in the area. They would write a paper to the minister and say, Mr. Minister, these are the options available to us. This is the situation with the equipment that we have there, and we need to make a decision in acquiring new equipment, new generating sets. And I said to you, this is what we should do.
Well, I agree 100%. Normally, well, in every instance that I know, the permanent secretary is the chief technical officer of the ministry. He's the one actually has his pulse on deficits or surpluses in any ministry. He's the one, or she is the one, that then makes a recommendation forward as to how to fix whatever the ailments are in the system, what to acquire, when to acquire it, and those kind of reports. Those go to the minister goes to cabinet and presents it and say, okay, we have got a report about the power situation at Nevelec based on our engineer's report coming to the PS. Mr. Stapleton is, of course, the PS of communications.
Yes.
a quite competent man.
Of course.
Right? You have competent engineers at Nevlec who has been warning about the implosion at Nevlec for years, Patrice. The reports came to the minister through his permanent secretary.
So you really believe that the cabinet sat and based upon some advice, they chose to invest that kind of money in a temporary supply?
Somebody had something to do with it. Somebody benefited somewhere along the line. Tell yourself that.
Has to be.
Somebody benefited somewhere along the line.
Because that can't be a rational decision.
Cannot be. Especially after the same government was criticizing Douglas in St. Kitts for having temporary supplies of power. Remember they had the difficulties in St. Kitts, and Minister Branton was all over the place. Oh, it's a stupid idea, blah, blah, blah. And that's why they call from St. Kitts, always called in to say, don't tell me this NIA has invested in the same things in terms of the containerized power supply that they criticized Douglas for in St. Kitts. But this is the path of the course.
With Douglas, them never bought them. They were renting them. They were renting them until they got their situation with the power.
So it's worse here then.
It's worse, yeah.
These guys bought, I think they said they paid $600,000 for, you know, when these guys talk, you really have to take it with a grain of salt, you know. And, you know, it's just funny how they do things. But following on that is also the promise they had made. And the reason why the past chairman resigned from Nevlec. Because you had the promise that was made during the campaign of 2013 that they're going to remove surcharge. Right? Little did they know the surcharge was what was keeping Nevlec afloat to make them liquid.
Right.
And that money ostensibly was to be used to purchase new equipment to improve the infrastructure. And they start reducing it. And of course, the viability of Nevlec reduced as the surcharge reduced. And so the old chairman lost his job because he refused to go any further with the surcharge. But they were trying to live up to a campaign promise that was off the cuff, ridiculous. Because here they were outside of the government making a claim that what they're going to do to reduce the power charges on divisions, without realizing that the world's power cost, the cost of power in the world had gone through the roof. Not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, to the world. And therefore, they really collapsed the efficacy of Nevlec and caused themselves problems, which are now blaming, of course, on NRP. They say NRP is the one who was fault for leaving age engines there. The only problem with that argument, Patrice, is the fact that the engines started to show wear and tear 3 years after NRP left office. So what happened between 2013, 2014, and 2015, and 2016? What was happening to the engines? Weren't you aware they were aged all the time?
But I'm sure you were told by Carl Powell that in the water project with the CDB,
yes,
there was some provision
for a new engine.
For a new engine.
Yes.
I am sure I would have heard that, but they took over the government in 2013.
That's right.
And we don't know what has happened in relation to that, because I'm sure they would have met the paperwork there. I mean, you don't take the paperwork out of the government. A government, by and large, is continuous. And so whatever policy, whatever proposal was being shaped at the time or being agreed to, it was left there. And so for 3 years, or rather for 4 years, because from 2013 until 2017, they ignored the problem.
Yep.
They did nothing to solve the situation. And what are you going to tell me? You are going to blame NRP for that?
Yeah, it's easy.
And the people of Nevis are going to accept that kind of behavior?
Well,
no, man, that doesn't make any sense, because whenever you can't talk about what NRP did or what NRP did not do. You are in the government now.
That's right.
What have you done to address the situation? And we see what they have done. They have made a decision to bring temporary supply.
Temporary supply.
And now they have brought a Watsilla, and we are hearing the commissioning is being delayed. And we don't know what is the reason, and the minister's gone on a jaunt.
Gone by grocery.
Far away to Taiwan.
Well, he said he's going to talk about education and housing and all these things. So, but I'm actually shocked that they allowed him out of the country. You know, for years Vance didn't want him to leave because there was no respect for the gentleman to leave the country and talk. For some reason, he's out of the cage now. So he's in Taiwan talking about some bilateral arrangements with that. But since we're talking about accountability, Patrice, I think it's a good time to jump into the PAC, the Public Accounts Committee. I think it's a good launching pad now, since we've talked about accountability and everything like that. So let's hear your views, because there's a piece I wrote on the Facebook concerning the same PAC and the issues concerning it, and we spoke about briefly last week on the show. But you were in the house, you were in the boiler room during the debate a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and so you will have a unique perspective on what occurred and what your impressions are and where we're going with this PAC. So let's give us your views.
Dr. Daly, just to say that we are going nowhere. That is the honest truth. You know, we went to the parliament in the first week, I think, of August, just after Culturama. And we were told that we were going to debate the Public Accounts Committee bill. It's a bill that has been circulating for some time. It is a bill that makes provision for the establishment of a Public Accounts Committee for St. Christopher and Nevis. But we know that there was provision in the law under the National Assembly Election Act, under the standing orders of the House. There is where a Public Accounts Committee is set up. If you look at Standing Order Rule 70, you see the Public Accounts Committee being there. And so we went there, and we heard a song and dance and a lot of debate about government in the sunshine. We heard that it was a landmark piece of legislation, groundbreaking legislation. That's what they try to say to the people of St. Kitts. They try to sell this piece of legislation as legislation that was going to bring transparency and accountability when it came to public expenditure, public finance here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And you know, Dr. Daly, we have had the opportunity of looking at various models throughout the Commonwealth as to how public accounts committees are structured. I think the good gentleman from number 3, Conwis Bernard, he gave an immaculate and an elaborate presentation comparing and contrasting various public accounts committee legislation throughout the Commonwealth. And he found there's no legislation in the Commonwealth that is like our legislation in St. Kitts and Nevis. And this is why we say so. This bit of legislation is very restrictive.
Very weak.
Because the powers and duties of the Public Accounts Committee relates to one report. One report. And that is the report of the Director of Audit. And when you contrast that with what existed prior to this legislation, you would realize that there is no transparency, there's no accountability that is going to be achieved by the implementation of this legislation. And you want to know, you want to ask yourself, why, what are they hiding? Does somebody have something to hide?
Has to be.
Because there must be greater public scrutiny as to how the government monies or the public monies is being spent. You must be able to follow the money.
Follow the money, boys.
You must be able to know whether you get value for money. We are not necessarily interested as to who you spend the money with, but we have to know how the money was spent and whether it was spent properly, because that is what the public of St. Kitts and Nevis demand of us. And you know, when you look at the powers and duties of the Public Accounts Committee before, you would realize we did not, as a functioning body, have to depend upon a director of audit report in order to do our work. As a matter of fact, when you look at Section D, Section D says the Public Accounts Committee before could summon any public officer to give any information or any explanation as the committee may consider necessary in the performance of its office, its duties. And so if you want to know how the money was spent on Hanley's Road, you can call in the officer. If you want to know how much money was spent on trucking, how much money is being spent on the Mundo track under the old legislation,
You could do it.
you could have done it.
Can't do it now.
No, you can't do it. Because unless it is mentioned in the Director of Audit report, you cannot investigate the matter. And so, why are we moving from a position where there was greater latitude, where there was greater powers in the Public Accounts Committee, to a very restricted powers under this new piece of legislation? And so, you would realize, in this legislation, the Public Accounts Committee can only do its work in private. So, I don't understand if it's really a Public Accounts Committee, because the word public means something. The Public Accounts Committee is accounting not to the government.
To the public.
It is accounting to the public at large.
That's why you have the public debate on the budget.
Exactly. That is why in order to get money, you must go in the parliament and appropriate it in a public space. But now, in order to determine how the money was
You want to have a
spent,
secret hearing.
they say you have to do it behind closed doors. Secret hearing. So where is the sunshine? There is no sunshine in that. And that is why we in the opposition, we could not support this piece of legislation. Because this piece of legislation is designed not to bring transparency, not to bring accountability. As a matter of fact, an allegation was made in the House as to a statement that was attributed to the Prime Minister about spending $1 million on security. $1 million on security in relation to some premises. And if that is not mentioned in the auditor's report,
Can be investigated.
it cannot be investigated. And if we want to know if it was a justified expenditure in acquiring this temporary supply of power at Prospect,
Can be asked.
if it is not mentioned in the Directors of Audit report,
Cannot be
it
asked.
cannot be asked. Because if you go and ask, you know what they are going to say?
Not in the law.
It is not in the law. And so you can't do it. And so I believe the people in St. Kitts and Nevis must not be fooled. You must not be hooked with when it comes to these guys. Because these guys were telling us for a very long time, bring the Public Accounts Committee. We want transparency. We want accountability. But you realize from their very actions, they have limited transparency. They have limited accountability. And there's no openness. So I want to know if this Public Accounts Committee will apply in Nevis.
It's a federal law. So
It's not all federal law don't necessarily be applicable in Nevis. So up to now we have not heard from the Minister of Finance in Nevis. He has not said anything as to whether he will in fact set up a Public Accounts Committee in accordance with the provisions of this legislation. I believe the people of Nevis deserve to know.
Well, that'd be very interesting. But based on my viewing of that broadcast, where the minister responsible for our premiership and the deputy premier, their presentations were so weak. They're gonna do the same
But
thing.
it is hard to justify this, you know.
It can't be justified. And it was funny to the end. They came with such a weak argument as to why this is the format they should take, that the result of saying, listen, we in the majority, you know. We're going to get the vote whether the guy support it. We want your support, but we're going to get it regardless if it's supported or not. This is going to go through. And I found it so amusing that the normal bluster of Brantley, he was so demure. He looks even sheepish. He almost like he embarrassed, to say, but it's never hypocrisy. He's even below what I would normally do. He was so bad. I look at his face, I was like, what happened in here? He looks like he himself was even embarrassed. But the level of hypocrisy that was in that bill, I mean, I was like, what the hell are we talking about here? The $1.7 million they spent Patrice up at the cultural village, where you indicated, and I think Mr. Hector indicated, contractors outside have gone there and said they can't see how this costs $1.7 million.
You mean used containers?
And unless that is captured in the auditor's report, you cannot ask a simple question of the project officer. You can't ask him anything.
Well, the project officer under this new bill
cannot be asked.
The project officer can be asked. You have to ask a PS.
A PS. This is the ridiculousness of it. The project officer is the one who orchestrates the work. So he has to give an account as to why he decided to accept a contract from this person or that person and the merits of it. Was there bidding on the project or was it just selected? Why did you choose to accept a contract for painting, for example, for $55,000? Or want to replace 5 toilets and 2 sinks for $8,000? These are questions that cannot be asked, Patrice, based on this legislation. So the Navy, I'm going to tell you something. Vance Amory and Mark Brantley and the rest of the NIA leadership, they are smiling.
Of course.
They're walking on air. I'm sure they're in Taiwan dancing and in England in the parade dancing because they're happy that they have prosecuted this case against divisions where you now have no questions could be asked or how they spend public money.
And remember, Dr. Daly, a director of audit report, it's only going to be available 9 months after. 9 months after the books of the government close.
So that question asked, somebody asked you, how independent is an auditor general? How independent?
Dr. Daly, what independence you talking about?
So he's directed to what to investigate.
He will get the accounts from the accountant general or the treasurer, whichever.
And then give him what they want.
And they give him the accounts, and then he has to write a report that he gives to the prime minister.
Yes.
So what do you expect him to write?
But what I find amazing to Patrice is that if you're on the committee, if you're on the public accounts committee, you can only question what's in the report.
Right.
The contents of that. You cannot go beyond that. Right? So you can't say, well, resubmit the information. We want to look at it ourselves. Not even that you can do.
They're going to tell you that if you try to do that, Dr. Daly, they are going to say to you that that's not in the legislation.
That's right.
That's what they are going to say to you.
They're not bound by it.
Right. And they have 3 votes and the opposition has 2.
That's right.
And so,
numbers count.
If you want to go and carry out an investigation in a matter, unless they consent, you can't do it. And so the idea about saying to the country that people want to go on a witch hunt, people want to go and investigate people, those are not real arguments. Because the government has more people on the Public Accounts Committee than the opposition.
That's right.
And as a matter of fact, they're saying you can't even talk. If you're on the Public Accounts Committee, based upon how the legislation is, you can't even say anything outside of the Public Accounts Committee.
It's all secret.
It's all secret. As a matter of fact, they could take you off. They can bring a motion. If they have said if you breach the confidentiality,
you're out.
You're out. But look at me. I am a parliamentarian and I have a representational responsibility.
You're elected,
I am elected, so when my constituents ask me something,
you must be able to answer.
I must be able to answer them. That is what you call public scrutiny. And that is what you call accountability. So they are saying to me now, once I sit on the Public Accounts Committee and I am asked a question by my constituents about something in the Public Accounts Committee,
I will have to tell my constituent,
I don't know.
I can't answer. I have to tell them. I will have to tell them that, and that can't be right. Because I will be failing to discharge my representational responsibility to my constituents.
That's right. That is absolutely right. And so I am left to wonder when Nivisions and Kitishans who have been on the fence or who have been on their side hear this discourse as to why this PAC has been watered down to this. What are they thinking? Why do you think it's happening? Why? But, you know, Mr. Hector would have written to Calendar asking for disclosure on the expenditure vis-a-vis the legal fees incurred by the NIA for representation from Anguilla, from the law firm from Anguilla. Up to now, Mr. Doe has not responded, and he will never respond because they don't want anybody to know how much they were spent on outside legal fees to defend indefensible cases on Nevis. They don't want anybody to know.
They have lost.
And they've lost. They lost the Tempo case by a lot of money. Right? So, if you are thinking that this government here that we are suffering through, if you thought you're seeing the worst of them, take a look for yourself at this legislation and judge for yourself.
Exactly.
Judge for yourself that if you don't have anything to hide, why are you not following the least of the angels in the Caribbean and say, listen, Trinidad and Tobago has a strong public accounts committee. Barbados,
it's constitutional.
Jamaica, it's in the constitution.
In Trinidad and Tobago.
Right? In England, Mr. Congress Maynard himself even reported, there's a committee that investigates the public accounts committee to make sure the public accounts committee is doing its work. That's how severe this is. So you have a dog watching another dog. You understand? But here, we are letting this thing slide. We are saying to, the message from this NIA is we are going to cover up whatever misdeeds we did. Whatever corruption there is, we're going to cover up. Because you can't ask me nothing. You cannot ask me a question about Hanley's Road. You cannot ask me anything about the legal fees. You can't ask me about anything having to do with any project on Nevis that has government investiture in it. Not only that, Patrice, you can't ask me anything about Nevlec either, you know, or housing and land. Any statutory corporation, you can't ask me nothing either.
Unless it's in the auditor's report.
Unless it's in the auditor's report. You cannot ask me. This can be nonsense. And anybody in the diaspora who claim to have some level of intelligence above what we have here in the islands, you answer the question. If this seems fair to you, it just seems right to you. And we go on from there. We're going to take another short break and we'll be right back.
Where the press is free and every man is able to read, all is safe. That is the motto of the national newspaper of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the SKN Leeward Times. Be sure to purchase our latest issue at our many distributors, including TDC City Drugstore, Slacks Liquor, Chapter 1 Bookstore, Dong Fang Supermarket, Superfood Supermarket, Island Tires and Hardware, Ram Supermarket, Hosford's Value Mart, Cost Me Less, Best Buy Gingerland, X-Petrol, E&F Enterprise, Mansa's Last Stop, and A.V. Jones and Sons. Stay up to date with what's going on in the Federation, the wider Caribbean, and the whole world. Buy yourself a copy of the SKN Leeward Times newspaper. For more information, be sure to call 1-869-469-1049 or log on to our website www.sknclt.com. Feeling thirsty? Need to beat the heat? Then come on into Nevis Spring Water at Cedar Trees and get just what you need. We sell small, medium, and large bottled water, cold or room temperature. We also refill your large bottles. We sell empty bottles of all sizes. Call us at 469-5011 to place your orders or for your delivery services. Nevis Spring Water, the only thirst quencher. Get in touch with your favorite presenter or go live on Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM by calling local line 1-869-469-5300. Calling from overseas? No problem. Call 1-203-983-8903. It's your SKN Choice Times and we want to hear from you.
Welcome back to Choice Radio 105.3 as we discuss the issues that are on the people's mind. And we just discussed the issues of the Public Accounts Committee being watered down to almost oblivion. Its effectiveness reduced beyond dirt. And so we've touched on that. And I'm really hoping for a serious conversation to occur based on what we've presented here today and what you could read online. Yes, Patrice.
Dr. Daly, have you heard from the chamber?
No, that's true, you know. It's kind of strange. They haven't said anything.
An important bit of legislation such as this, which deals with the issue of public accountability and, of course, the question of possible corruption. Those are matters that I believe all stakeholders in the country should be interested in and should show some interest in. But I heard a caller to the radio station yesterday, and he said something that has been on my mind for quite some time. It seems like around here that corruption, it is okay.
It's gone mainstream now.
People accept it.
Yeah, it's gone mainstream.
Because you don't hear these stakeholders in our society coming out and making any pronouncement on these matters. We have heard so many things. People forming their own company, importing cement.
Mm-hmm.
We know projects coming.
Mm-hmm.
We have heard these things, and yet still we have not heard
no outcry
from the general public. So in other words, what they're saying, it is acceptable.
It's mainstream, just like murders now. It's mainstream. We have come to a state of normalcy when it comes to corruption and murders and mayhem. We have become to a state of normalcy with this. It's okay now. I never thought we would get to this point, Patrice, but we have come to a state of normalcy. Benjamin Joseph, I've known this gentleman all my life. All of my life. And he got shot with an earshot. I heard the shots. Not knowing who it was, of course. And he has died. And he's on to the next one. It's amazing how the mind works. How the mind normalizes what should be abnormal. I guess it's a fail-safe mechanism to keep us, sane. You don't over-indulge on emotion and in loss. So it's like almost a self-preserving mechanism our brain has. Because when I was growing up, Patrice, there was one murder that I knew of. It was Samuel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a little boy going to boys' school. And that murder traumatized me for a long period and the most of Nevis people were sleeping under their beds.
Traumatized the nation.
People were sleeping under their beds and there was only one in years. I never thought we'll get to a point where we are now, the frequency of murders have now traumatized to the point we become almost like zombies. We have tuned out and turned off because it's almost like preserving our sanity as we go forward throughout the days. It is strange. And some murders have become normalized and corruption has become normalized. What I cannot accept, Patrice, is the fact that I remember in 2013 when we were having a debate as to who and how the name should be removed from the voters list. All those civic organizations, the Christian Council, this and that, stepped up and said, no, we oppose this, no, we oppose that. And here persons are thieving the life out of this country. And the same persons who are preaching and pontificating to this country about their righteousness are watching and standing by while abominations such as the Public Accounts Committee are allowed to go through unchallenged, and people are walking around shaking hands and and like nothing has happened. Like nothing has happened. It's amazing what we accept in this country as governance. It's amazing. And so bad governance, Patrice, just like murders and just like the corruption, it's become mainstream. It has become normalized. Bad governance has become normalized. People are basically giving up to self-preserve. To say, listen, I can't take it on anymore. I have to save myself. And I'm thinking now that the reason why we are in the state we are in right now, where people have become so, tuned out, because everything is collapsing at such a rate around us. All the things in society we hold dear is collapsing so much around us. We have become like turtles. We have withdrawn ourselves in our little shell, and the world is collapsing around us. And to save ourselves, we peek out now and then.
I believe it has something to do with being partisan.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. You suspect that the political parties that some of these people support have not functioned, have not delivered the way that they would have expected. And so
they're embarrassed by it.
They are indeed embarrassed.
By it.
And so they have not said anything. But when good people remain quiet,
boy,
you see what happens. You see what is happening in our society, because when people like Pablito Hanley, Pabi Hanley, Pabi was a shopkeeper, a businessman, closed up his shop one night. He was going home to retire, and boom, he got a bullet in the back of his head. And the amazing thing is this: Pabi has now become just a statistic.
Just a statistic. Just what I'm saying.
Just a statistic. He has become
normalized.
Pabi is like you're saying, go on to the next one.
On to the next one.
But the people must understand that this is not acceptable behavior. People must not be allowed to gun down people just like that. Like they're animals. Dogs, cats. And you never hear anyone being caught?
Nope.
Nothing being solved. And what the government told you before they got in power, they told you that they would bring crime down. They would arrest the criminal activity here on the island of Nevis.
It's gone to the roof.
And the people of Nevis today, they are scared. They are more scared now in 2017 than they were in 2013 when the NRP was in power. Because we have had 30-something murders under Van Semri. And all you get from Van Semri as a premier, sometimes he give you a speech, some empty platitude, condolences. That is not what we want to hear from our premier, because he has a responsibility for security on the island of Nevis. What we want to hear from our premier is not that he's going to Leeds to shake hands and wine and dine. We want to hear from our premier
what is the
policies. What is the plan to make the island of Nevis safer? Nevis is a tourist country. And let me say, some people would want you to believe, as they used to back in 2012, that taking off names off of a voters list, that was the greatest threat to democracy. But I believe murders, crime and violence are a greater threat to democracy. Greater threat to democracy, because if crime goes up, it affects development.
It affects everything.
It affects everything. The people of Nevis are no longer safe in their homes. No longer safe. Look at Myers.
In his home.
Myers.
Murdered in his home. Carlisle Hobson murdered
Carlisle
in his
Hobson.
home.
Everett Hanley.
Murdered in his home.
The man went out to have a little drink, his usual Friday afternoon lime at the bar. And he didn't make it back home to his wife. And that again, he has become what? A statistic?
Statistic.
It's like what? It's like we have accepted it.
But people are not talking about them anymore. Carlisle Hobbs was brutally murdered, Patrice. Brutal, the most brutal murder you can understand it. They beat the man to death and then still shot him. You understand? We have forgotten about Carlisle because it's on to the next one. You know, we have forgotten about Everett. We have forgotten. When I say forgotten, I don't mean the out of memory. But it's almost like we are in auto drive now. We are just moving along. That is how we know we're in a bad state when we're simply moving on and saying, I wonder who next.
Well, look, the young lady from Cotton Ground, Morella.
Jesus.
Those two gentlemen in Cotton Ground who were gunned down high afternoon.
How much talk you hear about them now?
You don't hear anything about them.
Okay.
They're gone.
On to the next one. So this week, we're talking about Benjamin Joseph. Next week, who knows? It might be me. It might be you. Because as far as I know, Benjamin Joseph don't interfere with people. He's not a member of a gang. And so when they believe that somehow they will allow this thing to fester, let them kill one another, they're now transferring that anger to regular business people.
Oh, yes.
You understand? And so, on to the next one. That's the state of affairs we are here with. On to the next one. But Patrice, on to the next story. We know that there was a delegation of 41 persons who would have been traveling to the UK to participate in the Leeds, the UK parade, the Leeds parade, Carnival parade. And of that 41 that were scheduled to go, 9 unfortunately were left behind. And I understand the person who was leading the delegation, this gentle lady named Sheila, I think it's Sheila what? What's her name? Sheila somebody. Sheila James.
Oh, okay.
She attached to the Ministry of Tourism, I understand, of UK descent. She's, I think, division by birth or ancestry. But she has that UK or Euro disposition.
Yeah.
And therefore, she felt it necessary to organize this trip to honor a son of the soil, Mr. France, who was or is one of the founding fathers of the Leeds Carnival. And I understand from the storyline that he left BBC at the age of 19. If the gentleman has been back here, Patrice?
I suspect he has.
He has been back here. He's a son of St. James.
Yeah.
So, of course, we have kudos to him. But in my discourse, Patrice, in the first instance, I realized from the list of persons going, I don't mind the masquerades and those sort of people going. Why were this and that going? Why is this and that on the list? I really don't know why this and that made it on the list. Because he's not the reigning monarch.
Exactly.
He is not the reigning monarch. The last time I checked, it was Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to see our carnival queen, our cultural queen, be a part of that delegation. I didn't see that name on the list either. You saw a lot of dignitaries, people who are...
It's a government sponsor?
Well, that's another question. I asked a question already. Who is paying for this trip? Because I certainly know my taxpayer dollars paying for different that to go to Leeds, having not even placed in the lineup for Culturama. And he's going to be making a guest appearance. I guess he's going to sing the same stupidness he lost with.
What a government.
What a government. So I don't know how he's going to be singing, but maybe he should sing that song, What a Government, because the reception he got here in Nevis was so frosty. Maybe England, he'd be in the right temperature to get some kind of traction with that. So I have some questions as to, number one, who paid, how much they paid, and who selected, and why they were selected to go. I would have thought, given the guava crop we're in, Patrice, in all respect to the gentleman from St. James, bring him home. Bring him home. And let him be the patron for our carnival here, our Culturama here in Nevis. It's cheaper to bring one man down than to send 41 up. If you wanted divisions to be a part of the carnival, independent of Mr. James, Mr. France, I have no issues. Because our string bands have been to Cuba, they've been to the US before, they've been to Canada, they've been to the UK. I have no difficulty there. But to lump them all together in this government infomercial, because that's what it is, A whole team from NNC was going in to cover the event. So what do you suspect they were going to do? They were going to use this as an infomercial to say, look, your government cares. They're walking with a whole delegation to England. And featured, of course, in that presentation is the premier of the country shaking hands and kissing babies. It's an infomercial they're creating.
So the NNC team gone?
They got on the flight.
So cameramen and all?
Cameramen went and sound engineers went, and where you get left back, the masquerade get left back. So I don't know how that happened, but the logic escapes me because there, I read a piece of the woman from Deslin, whatever her name is. She said that it wasn't the it wasn't the island government's fault. It was purely the fault of the airline, and they were trying to get other flights to get those persons stranded.
But the airline said that the person who paid was reimbursed or something to that effect. I'm sure I read somewhere.
When there seemed to be some confusion. She didn't get on the flight either for whatever reason, But she's not quick to blame the NIA or anybody, Sheila James or anybody. She's basically saying the airline is at fault. But that's beside the point. The point I'm trying to make is here you have a delegation going expressly to create a stir in the expatriate community, in the diaspora of Nivisians who live in England, to say, look what the government has done. They have brought a whole team to support a Nivision of notice, of worth in England. Good job, CCM. It was all about that. It's all a public relations exercise. It has nothing to do with Mr. James, Mr. France. Mr. France was a collateral in the whole thing. In my view, he was being used to promote the work of CCM. Because if this was purely a cultural exchange, why you had the whole delegation from NNC going to cover it? Why? And paying for them to go to cover it. There are no cameras you could have got from anybody up there, no footage you could have gotten. But they wanted an intimate display of the premier moving along and shaking hands and talking the nonsense he normally talks to Nivisians living in England and encourage them to come down to vote in St. James.
Making a documentary.
Making a documentary, a political documentary, that's all it was. So I had some difficulties with that. In the same vein, you have now a mission also in Taiwan with the Foreign Minister Mark Brantley and Alexis Jeffers, along with the two permanent secretaries, one from health and one from education. And of course, they're topping up the Taiwanese for some money, for support in human HR-related matters and for technical training in some areas. They're going on to the 5th year of their term, Patrice. He has been the foreign minister since 2015. And he's now making overtures to Taiwan to talk about, we want to get some persons in skills training into Taiwan right now. I mean, come on. These guys are so transparent. They're so behind. You have the embassy in Taiwan in St. Kitts. And you have to go all the way to Taiwan to ask them, listen, we in St. Kitts and Nevis, especially in Nevis, want to get a few persons in here to study skills training.
But Dr. Daly,
come on.
Hensley Daniel left a template there with regards to skills training. You are now going to tell people who, and sometimes the level that some of these people are at, they now will have to learn Mandarin,
of course.
In order to access.
So you're going to get a year's training in Mandarin to do a 6-month course in electricity.
When you could have gone to Trinidad,
you could go to Trinidad,
Jamaica,
anywhere. They don't want to pay. They do not want to pay. The Nevis people are not worth it.
But the monies that was spent on this trip to England, I'm sure.
Oh, could more than pay for that. But come on.
That can more than pay for getting some persons in a proper skills training course in one of the renowned schools in the Caribbean.
But I'm sure, if I understand correctly, Hensley Daniel had made arrangements with the facilitators in Trinidad for a differential rate for our individual persons to go and not be charged the non-CARICOM rate. You understand? So why are we having this discussion now of all times? And why are we sending our people all the way to Taiwan when we have the facilities right in the CARICOM region? And whose training is more germane to what we need? The systems in Taiwan might be a little different to what we have in the Caribbean. So it doesn't make more sense to have the training orchestrated in a region that has more application. It makes sense to me. You know, I'm a bit nervous about these kind of overtures. And I also noticed something, Patrice. I've been working since I was a director of agriculture. I've been liaising with the Taiwanese. And before I left CFB a year ago, I met the Taiwanese ambassador on St. Kitts. And the meeting was only supposed to be like a half hour. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Over 3 hours. And I had to break myself away, you know, because we were just talking and talking and talking. But the essential point he was trying to make, the ambassador, to his credit, because I pointed out to him, I said, Ambassador, I have been in the public domain for a number of years. And I can't point to any investment of note that the Taiwanese have made that is going forward. Every minister comes with a hat in hand. Give me something for sports. Give me something for agriculture. Give me something for this. Give me something for that. And in the end, the little that they gave is watered down to a point where he has no traction. And I said to him, why don't the Taiwanese select a program of development? And anybody that's come, they said, listen, we are focusing on education, or we are focusing on infrastructure, or we are focusing on whatever it is. Because in the end, the monies that we gets watered down. And he said to me, he said, it makes absolute sense. Because just before you came, the Minister for Sports in St. Kitts came begging for a few lights. Oh my Jesus, Jimmy the Cricket. You are Minister of Sports and you're going to beg a few lights? Tell him you want a damn bridge from Nevis to St. Kitts?
Tell him pay to light the park.
Tell him to light the park. You know, tell me you want an incubator where persons can learn to set up businesses. You know, direct the development in such a way that you have long-term benefit over, you know, for people to benefit for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. But by the time they give $1 million here and $1 million there and $5,000 there, $20,000 there, the end result is you end up in nothing of meaning.
But I always thought the work that they were doing in agriculture was very good work for St. Kitts and Nevis. I think Nevis in particular, they did quite a bit of work there at Kates Bay. But I think they are no longer.
You would think so.
They are no longer involved.
You would think so. When I became PS of agriculture, Patrice, I really looked at this thing with a critical eye. And I was not happy. I wanted them gone out of Kates Bay. They were showing signals that they want to move, and I was opening the door for them to go. Because in my view, I was not getting the sort of developmental aid and strategic development that would move agriculture forward. We were asking them to invest in tissue culture, for example, to create a facility like they have down in the Windward Islands, on Nevis, to supply planting material, germ-free planting material, which can only come from tissue cultures. We are talking about rocket science. This is off-the-shelf science, where you take a piece of a plant and you can make many, many, many copies, all genetically identical. So if you have a good bearing mango tree, it is sweet, it is prolific. I can take a small piece, just a tip, and I can create thousands of copies. That is the kind of development that I was interested in getting. Not this piece workshop on planting potatoes. Not this piece workshop on doing, what do you call it, you know? Cultivation. Not the piece effort on all these little things. Because, in my view, we were not moving the argument we were looking for investments in aquaculture. We actually went, we built the first aquaculture pond on Nevis, right there at Prospect.
What has happened to it today?
It's gathering mass.
Under this new minister?
Under this new minister. Under the old PS. I should go, sometime when I see him, I want to tie a stone when they can throw in the same pond. But I can't do that because that's murder. but fish protein, Patrice, even if you can afford it, it's not available. Unless you're going to buy tilapia that comes in from Vietnam and Korea and those places up there. And I'm saying to the people of Nevis, I wanted, and the ministry wanted, to invest long-term in not only land-based aquaculture, which is using tilapia as a model, but also sea or marine aquaculture using what we call the pompon, African pompano, which we know as cobbler. These are resources, these are technologies that exist off the shelf. And those are my directions. And the Taiwanese we needed to elicit them for the kind of technical expertise as well as the resource base to get these projects done. So, to me, going to Taiwan to ask for a few dollars or a few seats to train while we can train those persons in Trinidad like we did before, it's better if we ask for projects that are going to push the country forward in a significant way.
So therefore, at the end of the day, one needs to ensure that the government has a coordinated approach to the matter and they are indeed strategic as to what they want to achieve from their various diplomatic relations. I mean, we have heard this foreign minister speak a lot about expanding the diplomatic footprint. But the people of Nevis really have not benefited from the jaunts, the joyrides all over the world. We really have not benefited in any tangible way from these exercises. So this is just, as you would have said earlier, this again is just an exercise in public relations.
Yep.
Basically, I believe maybe Mr. Alexis Jeffers has never been to Taiwan.
He's never been.
So it is his opportunity to go on a trip to Taiwan, and so he has not given up on the opportunity. He has gone.
But what are you going to ask for?
To Taiwan. That's the question.
You can't do up there.
What is he doing in Taiwan? What is he going to bring back for the people of Nevis to justify going to Taiwan? What is he going to bring back?
He can't bring back nothing because he don't know.
I mean, the Taiwanese, they have already assisted us from time immemorial.
Well, maybe
with our human resource development.
Of course.
So that has been ongoing.
That's an ongoing project.
That is an ongoing thing that the Taiwanese have undertaken to assist us in our development. So I really don't know what the minister, maybe he will come back with some monies to help with the aquaculture. Maybe. Let us hope that this is what is on his mind, because I've looked at the article and I really don't know.
It's a photo up. He's there,
but I don't know what is he saying. What is he going to discuss?
He's there in an official capacity in a t-shirt.
I mean, you're hearing that they are going to discuss issues with regards to renal failure.
Oh, yeah. It's a good thing you brought up that. Because I was so disgusted by that. He's gone to Taiwan to basically lobby for investments on the Taiwanese regarding end-stage renal failure, basically dialysis. He's gone there to talk about the incidence of renal failures in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have that statistic already. We know it's increasing. We know the root causes of it, right? But he's gone there basically to give an impression that he's interested. He's been a minister since 2013 of health. Well, more death than health. But he has been a minister of health since 2013. He's now waiting till on 2017 in the twilight of his parliamentary responsibility for Nevis, to talk about, he's going to talk about renal disease in Taiwan.
But he went to Guyana too. He went to Guyana.
This man has no shame.
And he came back to the people of Nevis. And he told the people of Nevis he was going to build a wing. As a matter of fact, what did he say? He was going to have four machines.
But better than the two that
for the people of Nevis.
Better than the two that hence the
you know what the Taiwanese vice president should have said to him in very undiplomatic language. He should have said to him, what about the machines that are there
already
on the grounds of Alexander Hospital?
That's right.
That's what the Taiwanese minister should have said to him, because I am sure that they are aware.
Of course, they are
aware.
They don't miss a beat.
That those machines are there, and this minister of health has refused to commission and operationalize those machines. As a matter of fact, he went into the parliament and he boasted that they wanted extra money to ship it, and he refused to send the money to the people in Israel. He refused. The machines were on the dock, and they said, listen, whatever was negotiated, we need some extra monies for the shipping. And he refused to send the monies.
I think like $6,000.
Some small amount of money. And the people in Israel understood the importance of these machines in the healthcare of St. Kitts and Nevis in particular. They send the machines anyway. They sent them. And for now 4 years
and counting,
this minister has refused. And despite all the persons who would have died, or those who would have been diagnosed with this condition, he, as the Minister of Health, has refused to operationalize those machines. And now today, he's in Taiwan and speaking to the Taiwanese people about renal diseases.
My gosh. Patrice, there's a lady from Bath. I don't want to disclose who she is. But every other day, I see her going across the shark-infested waters for dialysis on St. Kitts. And it is so painful to watch. She's dropped off to the pier, and the pain simply to walk from one end of the pier, just across the breadth of the pier.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the agony in the woman's face. I've known her for a long time. And when I saw it for the first time, I almost wept. It was so painful to see. It is shocking how this thing devastates the human body. And to see that woman religiously, every 2 days, have to go to St. Kitts to save her own life at her own expense. And this is not a person who is who is gainfully employed now because she's unable to work. And even when she was working, you're talking about a person who was barely making it. And we have the machines on the ground here in Nevis.
Imagine that.
And this woman has to go to St. Kitts every other day to get dialysis done. How can anybody in their right mind, right thinking, condone this? How can anybody be so inhumane to say, listen, let her go to St. Kitts. She wants to save her life. Let she go to St. Kitts.
She's from St. John's?
She's from St. John's.
The constituency that the minister represents?
The minister represents it. The minister represents St. John's.
And he's going back to ask the people of St. John's again? Under those circumstances, in any other country, you know what would happen?
He can't even walk in the neighborhood. He needs police escort to get in and out.
You know what would happen? So what is it? What do the people of Nevis, the voters of Nevis, need to really understand that these guys in this present government don't care about them? They can't provide you with proper health care. They can't provide you with security. If they could have kept us safe, Benjamin Joseph and Pablito Hanley would have been alive today.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been alive today. They can't provide us with electricity, an uninterrupted supply of electricity. They can't. provide us with. What more the people of Nevis want? To understand that the time has come for them to make a change. Look at the economy of Nevis, Dr. Daly.
What economy? What economy?
There's no economy?
There's no economy of Nevis. It's bingo. Bingo is the only economy of Nevis.
The economy basically has gone.
It's gone. It's long gone. It's been gone for years. I can tell you that as a business person. I can tell you that for a fact as a business person. When I get those reporting documents from Treasury, from Inland Revenue to say, report how much you make, I said, less the light, but one day I said, wait, don't send me no more. Do not send me anymore. You're wasting my time. Whatever you got last week, last month, just take off 10% of that again. Do not send me no more documents to send and waste my time.
So it has been a constant decline?
A constant, predictable decline. Constant and predictable decline in our economy. If you don't believe me, go into town and ask the business people, what is your average week like? How much money you make? Do enough to cover your bills? I know I don't.
You know, a lady told me that this week, a lady told me who operates a business. She said, listen, it is costing her more money to open than being closed. She said that to me.
But you see, people like us, we always have hope, eh? That's the problem with me. I always believe there's
Eternal
hope. Eternal optimist. And a lot of pride. A lot of pride. Believe me, that pride is eating into my meager bank account, because my bank account is what's carrying my business right now, not the receipts. Not the receipts.
Operated at a loss.
I'm retired, and I'm on a fixed income, and therefore my pension of such meager amounts I cannot live on that.
Has to carry the business.
Has to carry the business, because I'm hoping that in due course, NRP will be back in the office,
and a brighter day.
Will come. He has to come. He can't get any worse than this.
We have hit rock bottom here.
We are below the rocks. Get about rock bottom. We gone below the rocks. My father was saying, and when he want to tell you how bad things be, and forgive my language, he said, boy, this is lower than whale shit. if that low, when he tells you it's lower than whale shit, whales swim in deep water, miles deep, and therefore when they defecate and the shit goes all the way down miles, that's how far this economy has gone. So when somebody tell you it's lower than real shit, you know things real bad. And that is where the economy is right now. And it's going to get worse, Patrice, because you know what's happening? The infrastructure works, the government is running out of money.
Oh yeah, we see that. That's obvious.
And so you see guys who used to get 5-6 days of work, now down to 1 and 2. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Believe me, it's going to get worse. But have faith. Patrice, the last thing on our program today is to touch on education. You brought it up, and we need to make a comment about it, because I saw the Minister, Sean Richards, he made a comment about parents need to take greater responsibility on how the children perform in school. And that's what goes without saying. Yeah. As a teacher myself, a former teacher, as an educator, we basically can predict from early class who is going to perform well. We know that. That's not the problem. The problem I have is in recognition of the numbers that we know will do well, nothing is being done of note to rescue the multitudes who we know will not do well. That is the problem. We know the system is broken, Patrice, because when you get a situation where more students are underperforming than performing, you know something is wrong. I mean, beyond the infrastructure. We know the infrastructure is crap. We know the infrastructure has to be radically transformed. We know that. And NRP has committed to a infrastructure project to replace the old high schools and Nevis. You only have 2. Not only that, but to go into the primary schools and do also radical transformation there. We know there was But the problem, because, take a place like Africa, for example, Patrice, where you have multitudes of students jammed into small classrooms, having classes under trees with little resources. And the bulk of them are doing better than we're doing in the Caribbean with all the resources we have. Right? What is that telling us? The system is broken. The system is broken. And laying the blame on the foot of the parents. Without saying, listen, we know it's broken. We know where it is broken. We know why it is broken. Let us put these into place to make sure we put an end to it. Take, for example, we know for a fact that students who are taught by trained teachers do exceptionally better than those who are trained or taught by untrained teachers. This is not a slant or slap against our untrained teachers. But it tells you have to invest in human resource development for our teachers. You have to be able to provide scholarships for them to go and become trained. Incentives when they return. And we spoke at NRP's point of view, where you provide access to housing, access to vehicles after 5 years of work as a teacher. The kind of concessions that we encourage persons to stay into the profession. What we're having is a revolving door of teachers now. A crop comes in September, but the next September the crop is gone and no crop comes in because they're only there for a time.
But have an impact on the student, isn't that so?
Exactly. So what we are saying, we don't want this revolving door teacher situation anymore. We want persons committed to education. Because, Patrice, you must recall a favorite teacher in primary school, in secondary school, who made a difference in your life.
Of course.
That person might have been untrained, but they were good.
Yep.
But we have no way of assessing those qualifications beyond, the formal,
Subject 9.
subject 9 subject thing. I've had situations where I taught at Charleston Secondary, finished school in June, and students who left school in July under my tutorage returned and sat next to me in the staff room to teach. They have friends who they will teach. And not only that, those young teachers coming in not only were untrained, but they were unfamiliar with teaching strategies, control of classroom. And of course, these people are training their colleagues out of the school and into the school. They're friends. And so we are saying the 60% failure rate of the incoming class, if you come in as a freshman into Charleston Secondary or Gingerland Secondary for that matter, the odds are against you completing any subject passes, This is a fact. The odds are against you by over 60%. Those are betting odds. So you look at a class of 10, and 6 out of 10 in there will fail.
That bad?
The pass mark for Charleston Secondary is 60%, or in some classes 70%. That means if you are in a situation where 60% of your school is failing, well, doesn't that tell you something is broken?
Where's our Minister of Education?
Well, he's in Leeds shaking hands, jumping up in carnival and drinking fine wine. And the Minister of Education has been reduced. They bring it back now when making Scooby the prominent secretary. But when you speak to people who are on the ground in education, they're going to tell you straight out, listen, we have no administrative functionaries above the primary school level deciding matters for secondary schools.
But I thought education was a structured kind of ministry where you have what? Is a PEO and a PS?
PEO and a PS. But what I'm hearing, Patrice, is that the Minister of Education has not met with the senior administrative staff of education for years.
But he's in Bastia.
He has not met with them to say, listen, I've looked at the results.
2 salaries in Bastia.
But that's what the problem is. He has no time to deal with Neves affairs. He has no time.
But Dr. Daly, you and I know that nobody can function effectively that way.
Can't.
One man can do 2 jobs.
Listen, if the situation is, the situation is as it is, if you are the minister, Patrice, the minister of education, you are responsible for the education of the entire island of Nevis, from pre-K, K, primary, secondary, and tertiary. And you're looking at the results of these exams, overseas exams, as one aspect of performance. And you're looking at another performance criteria saying, listen, we had 300 students coming into our high schools. And the report is, from the 300 students came into high school 5 years ago, 60% of them have left with 0 or 1 subject passes. And you have not convened a single meeting with your heads of departments, with your heads of ministries, to say, listen, what the hell is going on here? No.
I thought they were doing an education study sometime back. Did they study?
Yeah, they did a study. Of course, and there are a lot of recommendations. But the recommendations are nothing but bookends on somebody's shelf. Because they're not implementing them.
So there is no leadership in education.
There's no leadership. There's no leadership. And when you have a situation where you as a permanent secretary or you as a PEO do not have a boss to answer to, guess what? Guess what? You see, people elected him. They didn't elect the PEO or the PS. They elected the minister.
But he has to set the policy.
He has to set the policy.
Has to.
He has to set the tempo, the expectations. He must demand accountability for the education of our children in this federation. I think it's a Nevis. Well, of Nevis.
But you see, I get the impression with this concerned citizens movement government, they don't answer to the people of Nevis, you know.
Man, let me tell you something, Patrice. These guys here have thumbed their noses, thumbed their toe noses, and they've given us the middle finger for years. They've given us the middle finger for years. How else you explain the Public Accounts Committee? How you explain these things you're talking about, the corruption? You know, the trips. How you they don't expect anything, any reaction from these people.
The Deputy Governor General wrote a letter to the government of Nevis in January of this year, indicating that he is going to demit office in April. And we were never told. We were never told. Oh, the question you have to ask, who are these guys' employers? I thought it was the people of Nevis. And we have not even been told when we are going to get a new Deputy Governor General. Have you heard anything?
No word. I understand that.
You remember when there was no Deputy Speaker of the Parliament?
Yep.
They made all sorts of noise up and down the country. It is not properly, it's not constitutional. The House is not proper. It's not in order. Well, today, Nevis has no Deputy Governor General. And the Constitution provides for that position, and that position must be filled. And you ain't hear nobody saying that that is not proper. You have not heard one word from this government.
Why do you think that is, Patrice? What are they waiting for? What is your
my view is my view is the disdain and the disregard and the lack of respect that they have for the people of Nevis. To me, they have said, listen, the people of Nevis will vote for us no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what we do,
well
the
done.
people of Nevis will clap and they will dirty their finger and put us back in. This is a clear sign of lack of respect for the people of Nevis. You can't get it no plainer than that. You don't even know when Amri leaves the country. You don't know what he gone for.
You know, he coming back
Spend the people Nevis money like however he want. And Dr. Daly has highlighted the mess that we have in our education system. Listen, education is foundational. It is foundational.
It's the right.
Without a proper foundation,
But you're
without
lost.
a proper education,
You're lost in.
you're lost in the world. And so we end up with these problems that we have in our society. The level of deviancy that we have and criminality we have, some of it has to be attributed to the way our education system is structured right now.
A lot of it.
because we are producing a group of people who are leaving school without no hope.
That's right.
No hope of succeeding. And we know the problem. Well, why can't we fix the problem? And you are now telling me the Minister of Education is not meeting with his management
No,
team?
he has met with them for years. He has not met with them for years. And that's why the ministry is floundering. You remember he had decapitated it, Remember he had decapitated the ministry and turned it to a department. He had subsumed the Ministry of Education under the previous ministry. But I guess he couldn't manage it because there is, people were groaning and screaming that we need better leadership. And so he released it back onto his own footing without any direction. And so I really fear for people like Scooby who will be trying their best to right this ship that's been sinking for a long time. But you see, Patrice, like you said, you're either going to pay up front or you're going to pay behind. You're either going to pay up front or you're going to pay behind. Because like I keep saying, you look to see who is down there. What they call the place? 1869?
1840.
1840. You look to see who there. And if you find a sixth former or a fifth former who finished A1 or A2, count yourself lucky. The persons who are there at 1840 are persons who have fallen through the cracks for a long time. And what we're going to reap, what we're going to sow, we're going to reap. Because if those students were rehabilitated through educational skills training before they got to secondary school, where they got lost even more, or even those who are failing, having entered secondary school in good standing, where has been rehabilitation? Where has been remediation? And why are we insisting, Patrice, in this day and age, 2017, yellow law 2017, why are we insisting that only a few select persons are able to write exams? Oh, you can't do math because you're weak in math. You can't do English because you're weak in English. Well, if I'm weak, give me the remediation to make me strong.
Exactly.
Do not stop me. At least if I take the exam, I know where my real weaknesses are. I can then go back and say, well, okay, I need to do analysis better. But we are protecting this idea of the statistic. Oh, we sent in 300 students and it was 89%, 90% passes. Really?
But they never give you the real statistics.
They never get the real statistics. How many students came into Charleston Secondary? And how many left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and whatever number of subject passes? That is a statistic I want to hear. Not the few who did well. I applaud them who did well.
Of course.
Because they're going to do well wherever they go.
No matter what.
No matter what they go.
Any environment.
Some kids are just driven to excellence like that. Some need to be coached. Some need to be dragged. But you cannot leave a child behind.
So the Nevis Reformation Party has a plan.
Have a plan. Has to have a plan. We have to have a plan because this constant cogwheel spinning around, going forward without doing anything, cannot stand. It cannot remain. We are saying in the Nevis Reformation Party, if you are leaving primary school or while you're in primary school, you must be able to functionally read and write and do the maths to get into high school. It's not an entrance test, but if you're weak, you must be remedied before you get there.
Yep.
And even while you're there, you must be remedied at all times until you get to the standard you want to be. Because guess what, Patrice, you know it. If you're in a class with 30, 40 students and you don't understand it, guess what? You start withdrawing,
Oh, yeah.
You start sinking. You start congregating with those who just like you.
Yep.
Right? Birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah, I know how it goes.
So if you're not doing well, you're going to congregate with those and they're going to reinforce that, It's them against us now.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes into the communities, into the homes, them against us. Well, one Jamaican, they were interviewing him some years ago, one of the bad boys in Jamaica. And they were asking him, why are you so vicious? This is your country. And you know what he said? What has this country done for me? What has this... my mind was blown. He has no allegiance to that flag. He said this country has not done anything. He has taken from me. That summed it up right there for me. What has this country done for me? And with that, that in essence captures what we're going through.
But you see, Dr. Daly, we had introduced some programs, to help our students with their educational development. And one such program was the one-to-one laptop program. You remember that program?
Of course.
And you know how important that program is in terms of the educational development of children? It empowered them. No matter how you were performing in school, you were given your own personal computer to assist you in aiding you in your education.
But that's the technology.
But exactly. But look what has happened. Because some people, they might be good at the technology, some might be good at their academics. You got a wide array of students. But look what has happened. This uncaring government, my son is going into third form in September. And up to now, he's still asking, where is his laptop?
Well, you got to buy him one, You got to buy him one. Because this government ain't give him none.
You remembered?
They give you a bag.
When I was a part of a government giving out laptops to the students and children of Nevis, he's today asking,
where's he one?
Where is his? Where is his? Instead, you hear a minister coming around telling people don't buy bag.
He gonna get them one.
He gonna give them one. And the man can believe what? Believe in yourself?
Believe in yourself.
I believe you would have more self-worth and belief if you had a laptop.
I believe so.
I believe so.
Of course.
And so we need to bring back these programs.
But to
laptop.
But to buttress that, Patrice, NRP has made a commitment through its manifesto that in areas where you have community centers, sports facilities, or other areas in the community where youth gather on a regular basis, those areas will be made hotspots for internet Wi-Fi connections.
Access.
So you having a laptop is part of the solution for the technology divide, but having access to the World Wide Web through Wi-Fi connections, that's just as critical. Because having a laptop without Wi-Fi connection, you have a nice looking device that sits there as a paperweight.
Of course.
And so NRP has made a commitment that the areas where Wi-Fi now does not exist, that we'll put in hotspots where persons can congregate, or who not in places where they normally congregate, they'll put Wi-Fi there for persons to access, of course, free of cost, internet service. Because we all know that this is the portal through which communication is now accessed.
Look, the reach again. You are at CFB and you know how important the reach was.
Goodness. Patrice, I tell you, that thing gave me such a headache. We had an enrollment to the reach. We had 1,400 persons, highest enrollment in the history of the CFB. And when the reach dropped off, we were left in 900. Those are 500 fewer people having access to tertiary level education.
Yeah.
These things are, you wonder if these guys are deliberately funking people. You wonder if some kind of diabolical strategy to keep people ignorant. Because in my view, getting to the masses of the people, educating the masses of the people, you're putting those persons in a position where they can compete on a level playing field with people immigrating into the country. Because if you're talking about, creating all these industries, well, who gonna work in them?
I don't know.
You're gonna bring in foreign labor, or you're gonna train your people to take those jobs?
Well, they say trucking is an industry.
Well, trucking. Anyway, Patrice, we have come to the end.
Yes.
We have now almost just the two of us, almost 3.5 hours.
No man, just a little bit over.
We started at 1:50.
It does over 2 hours, the engineer says. But he's, he talking, he keep looking at the watch. To say like he got a hot date or something.
Look like he has somewhere to
go. He got somewhere to go. So we spare him, any further delay in his departure from the studios here at Choice FM 105.3. And, Patrice, I'll give you the closing word. And
Dr. Daly, as we would have highlighted this afternoon, that the institutions that we hold dear in Nevis are indeed crumbling. The economy, our education system is under siege. Crime has a changing face in Nevis now. They told you that it was among the gangs. Now in Nevis, we see businessmen, ladies being murdered, and no one is held accountable. That is the reality. You have a situation now where you have no electricity. You wonder how decisions are made in the government. No one is accounting to the people of Nevis. I believe sincerely that the people of Nevis deserve better. The people of Nevis deserve better. The people of Nevis deserve a strong and a buoyant economy. We must be able to play, sleep in our homes, go to church, and we don't become victims of crime. We must be able to, whenever we want, turn on, we switch, and power is there, and water is there. Those are the conveniences that we have grown accustomed to in Nevis. And most importantly, Dr. Daly, the people of Nevis desire leadership. We desire representation. And I can say that when the Nevis Reformation Party was in government in Nevis, we gave you that requisite leadership that was required to drive the various institutions of the state together. And they worked. Look at our housing program. Look at what we did in education, what we did in healthcare, what we did for security. These are the things that we did. And I believe the people of Nevis were better off. They were better off during the years 2006 to 2013. And I could only urge, I could only implore the people of Nevis to give the Nevis Reformation Party the reins of government in Nevis again. Better days must come to the people of Nevis. You said you wanted to see Brantley in government. You have seen him now.
Found one thing.
You have seen his lack of performance. If you need a nice speech or some nice words, you go to him. But if you need performance, you come to the Nevis Reformation Party. That is what I ask of you. Support the various candidates of the Nevis Reformation Party. You just can't sit down and say, NRP is the better party. Just can't say that. You have to go out and convince other people. And most importantly, when the day of reckoning is called, you have to go and vote for the men and women of the Nevis Reformation Party. Good afternoon and God bless you.
Well, Patrice, with that, I have one slight comment because, I'm a bit disturbed when I hear persons who swear allegiance to the NRP, and yet when it comes to going out and vote, oh, I don't like this particular candidate, oh, I don't like that particular candidate. The party is a national party. It's not a personal party. It is not Hector's party or Carlisle's party. It's a national party. If you're NRP, you're NRP. You might not be happy with the candidate that you will be voting for, but you're not voting for him in his personal capacity. You're voting for him as a representative of a national party. And people need to we need to understand that whatever grievance you may have with a particular candidate or any candidate, that grievance cannot transcend the work of a national party. You must get beyond whatever disappointments you are having. whatever failures you think you experienced. Because if you are going to look me in my eye after all that we've discussed today and the weeks and months prior and the years prior and still say, I have difficulty voting for NRP, I have a difficulty with you. Serious difficulty with you. Because then you are putting a personal issue above a national issue, a national good. If you believe NRP is best for Nevis, full stop. Don't go no more than that. Because if you start getting to the realm of personal, body politics, you will always find reasons why you should stay home. Why me and vote for him and why me and vote for she? This is bigger than that, people. This is bigger than that. And if you do not benefit for whatever reason, remember, the world doesn't stop with you. You have kids and grandkids, cousins and uncles and nephews who benefit. Whatever shortcomings you may think, or whatever issues you may have with a party candidate, you have to look beyond that. And I'm very disturbed by a lot of people who come and talk about, I'm an NRP, but me and vote for he because me like he. Imagine that. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. We are fighting for the life of a country. Fighting for the life of a country. So if a war broke out, what are you going to say? Me ain't going to fight because me ain't like Patrice? What sense that make? And so I'm making an appeal to those out there who have been going and not only going and spreading their own views as who or what they believe it should be the right path, but who are co-opting others into believing the same thing. And so there seems to be this talk, we need to, almost like they want to shape who the party should be representing, their interests or a national interest. And my position is this. There are men and women of NRP. There's an executive of NRP. There's a cabinet. If decisions have been made going forward, the decisions would not be a singular decision. It's a collective decision. That is a new platform which NRP is going on. So if you had an issue with a minister before, of any minister before, and they did not fulfill that, you have now the possibility of having your issues shared the entire executive of NRP, and that issue go forward for deliberations. And so we cannot pretend mistakes were not made in the past. Mistakes were made, but you must understand, ministers are human like anybody else. And the crush of requests for this and for that, sometimes you have to wait for something to occur. Somebody to, it doesn't happen overnight. But sometimes people say, Patrice, I've been a soldier and I ain't get no just deserves, my just reward. But maybe what you're asking for was untenable. Make it seem like, it's something personal against you. I'm saying it might not be so. But have hope. There's a new dispensation where the executive of the Nevis Reformation Party, you can approach any member and make whatever suggestion you need to make as to whatever issues, on whatever issues you may have. And therefore, if you had a conversation with the minister prior and there has been no movement, you have now the opportunity to present your case to the entire executive, whether in person or in writing. And so we are using that to assure persons their views will be heard going forward. In the longer situation where it's one-on-one, and so I hope that will give some kind of solace, Patrice, to persons who have been sitting and saying and groaning about how they were treated or not treated prior. And with that, I thank you for tuning in to Choice FM 105.3. And those in the diaspora, continue to enjoy your weekend. we in Nevis here, we continue to try to be safe. And next week, Saturday, same time, same station, we'll once again bring the bright light of scrutiny on the issues of the day. Have a pleasant weekend.
Your views, your opinion, your voice. Tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM on Saturdays at 1 p.m. for the talk show that tackles the major issues on target. Join farmer members of the Nevis Island Administration and St. Kitts Nevis Federal Government as they discuss and debate today's issues with the listening audience. Also expect special guests, panelists, and friends. Participate by calling phone lines 869-469-5300 or overseas phone line 203-983-8903. Listen live on www.sknclt.com. Be sure to tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM each and every Saturday at 1 p.m. It's On Target with the Honorable Dwight Cozier, the Honorable E. Roberto Hector, and the Honorable Patrice Nisbet.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are not necessarily those of Choice FM, Community Radio, or its advertisers.